Good day. An event of enormous significance in British politics took place the other day, and one which simultaneously has attracted minimal attention in the British media. I'm referring to Nigel Farage's announcement that he is retiring, almost certainly for good, from British politics. I say this because, in my opinion, Nigel Farage has been the single most important figure in British politics since the fall of Margaret Thatcher in 1990. No other politician or political leader in Britain since Thatcher's fall has changed the political weather and the political landscape in the dramatic way that Nigel Farage has done. What makes Farage's achievement even more remarkable is that he has managed it without at any time holding elected office. He has never been an MP in the British House of Commons, and of course, and this is an important fact about him, which I'm going to discuss in more detail in a moment, he has never aspired at any time for a position in government. This is completely unprecedented. One has to go back to the 19th century to find political leaders like Cobden and Bright and others who were more interested in ideas and policies than in achieving political office, and managed to achieve radical change in that in consequence of that. Perhaps it's worthwhile considering the extent of Nigel Farage's achievement, which I think continues to be downplayed and underestimated. Firstly, it's true to say that there has always been in Britain a current of opinion which has been hostile to the EU and to the European Economic Community, which was the EU before it took on a more overtly political flavour. Margaret Thatcher, eventually, towards the end of her premiership, started to articulate these views, and in the early 1990s, the then British Conservative Prime Minister, John Major, had considerable difficulty getting the Maastricht Treaty through the House of Commons because he faced opposition from a group of Conservative MPs who saw the Maastricht Treaty as increasing to an excessive degree the political centralisation in Brussels, and felt that this was undermining British sovereignty and the sovereignty of Parliament too much. I would add that there has also been a current of thinking which has been critical both of the European Economic Community and of the EU on the left in British politics also. Tony Benn, the famous left-wing Labour politician, eventually became a strong opponent of the EU, as in an earlier period of his political life was the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. However, it's important to say that these anti-EU voices within the two main parties were always marginal and had little influence and appeared to command only limited support in the country. The Conservative MPs who opposed the Maastricht Treaty in the 1990s often said that they were not actually opposed to Britain's membership of the EU. They merely wanted to slow or reverse the process of integration which the EU was following. They call themselves Eurosceptics, not Brexiters. And at that time, as I remember, the idea of Brexit, of an outright departure by Britain from the EU, was discussed or mentioned by very few people, and none who played any central role in British politics. In the country itself, it's probably fair to say that there were more people in towns and villages and cities and factories who were critical of the EU at that time, but without a political voice or a political organisation, and with the two major parties, Labour and Conservative, both overtly committed to keeping Britain within the EU, that widespread anti-EU sentiment had no political expression and no political voice. When Nigel Farage began to become active in British politics as somebody who actually wanted to take Britain out of the EU, it must have seemed to most people that he faced an insurmountable mountain which he could never in the end climb. Nobody, as I recall, initially took him very seriously. In the event, Nigel Farage did those two things that were essential for the success of his movement. Firstly, he organised it effectively, and secondly, he worked hard mobilising grassroots opinion, especially in England, against membership of the EU. This was a huge and thankless and very difficult task, but it was one which was extraordinarily effective. He never, as I said, personally sought elected office or a seat in the House of Commons. He did push and achieve membership of the European Parliament, where he became a major thorn in the side of the British establishment, of the European establishment. But his primary tactic was to mobilise in the heartland areas of the Conservative Party, peeling away anti-EU sentiment from the Conservative Party and thereby pushing the Conservative Party in a more anti-EU direction. This created increasing pressures within the EU, within the Conservative Party, which eventually forced the British Prime Minister, the British Conservative Prime Minister, David Cameron, very much against his wishes, to agree to a Brexit referendum, which of course took place in 2016. The result of that referendum, which came as a shock to the political class, was again a testament to Nigel Farage's hard work and organisational skills over the previous decades that he had been active in politics. The British political class, which of course includes the media, have sought to downplay Farage's role in the Brexit referendum. They have focused instead on figures like Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson, and have sought to make the entire Brexit referendum campaign an issue, a battle between various branches of the British establishment, those like David Cameron, who opposed Brexit, and those like Boris Johnson, who belatedly came to support it. I have never been persuaded that this is a true reflection of what happened in 2016. Firstly, in the referendum itself, it has always seemed to me that Farage and his ally Aaron Banks had far more traction amongst the critical working class voters in northern and central England who voted against Brexit than has been acknowledged, voted for Brexit than has been acknowledged. But in any event, it would have been inconceivable that pro-Brexit sentiment in England specifically would have been so strong if Nigel Farage had not actively campaigned for Brexit for as long as he had been doing. When the Brexit referendum resulted in a vote for Brexit, Nigel Farage announced his retirement from active British politics. And that, in my opinion, was an event which demonstrated immediately how central his role to achieving Brexit had been. Briefly, the moment Nigel Farage quit the scene, what happened was an immediate backsliding by the British political class, seeking to undo the effect of the Brexit referendum and to find some way of either massaging Brexit to the point where it became far less meaningful than the British electorate seemed to expect, or to do away with it entirely. The Conservative Prime Minister, Theresa May, negotiated a withdrawal agreement with the EU, which would in effect, if not in name, have kept Britain within the European single market and subject to a great extent to EU law. And of course, at one and the same time, the Remainers, the anti-Brexit people within the British ruling establishment organised themselves into the so-called People's Vote campaign, which campaigned vigorously for a second referendum, which was quite openly and straightforwardly intended to reverse the result of the first. Moreover, even Theresa May's drastically watered down Brexit began to run into enormous difficulties within the House of Commons as an increasing group of British MPs who remained convinced supporters of the EU found various means and reasons to try to delay it, even or indeed to reverse it, even if that involved entering into brief tactical alliances with those few Conservative MPs who also opposed Theresa May's withdrawal agreement, because as far as they were concerned, it would have been a Brexit in name only, and one which did not go anywhere near far enough. That situation of stalemate in Parliament and actual reversal towards a default anti-Brexit, pro-EU position dramatically reversed when Nigel Farage re-entered British politics in 2019, re-established his political movement in the new guise of the Brexit Party, and proceeded within a few weeks to campaign and win a landslide victory in the European Parliament elections, which took place in the spring of 2019. It was that event which led directly to Theresa May's resignation, to the election of Boris Johnson, and to the eventual general election in December 2019, which led to the election with a substantial majority of a pro-Brexit Conservative government led by the Brexiteer, or at least self-proclaimed Brexiteer, Boris Johnson, who campaigned under the slogan of Get Brexit Done. I would add that the effect of all of this, and another consequence of Nigel Farage's political activism, has been the possibly irreversible decline of the British Labour Party. Before 2019, the British Labour Party, under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, had appeared to be riding high on a radical left-wing programme. The party, however, essentially deeply split on the Brexit issue, came apart in the December 2019 election, when the mainstream of that party committed the party to campaigning for a second referendum as desired by the People's Vote campaign. The result was that Labour lost a significant group of its working class pro-Brexit voters and a swathe of 50 seats in its former heartlands in the industrial north of England and in the Midlands. As of this moment, it is not clear that Labour will ever recover from this defeat, and it looks as if the party may be in the early stages of irreversible decline. If so, then it needs to be said clearly that it is again Nigel Farage's success in winning over formerly Labour voting working class voters to the cause of Brexit, which has been Labour's undoing. Obviously, all of these actions and steps of Farage have made him deeply unpopular with the British establishment. That is why the announcement of his retirement from active politics is attracting so little attention. That's also why when political commentators in the media in Britain talk about British politics, they generally avoid the topic of Nigel Farage. It has been a strange fact over the last 5-10 years that the single most important figure in British politics is virtually an unperson if you read the media here. And in fact, when he is briefly talked about, he is ridiculed as a person of no importance and as something of a charlatan, which in fact, as his record shows, he emphatically is not. Nigel Farage's success is, in my opinion, attributable to one overriding factor. Firstly, it should be said that there were certain things which have consistently worked in his favour. Firstly, it is true that in Britain, anti-EU sentiment has probably been stronger than it has been in some other countries that are members of the EU. It's also true that the British electoral system, with its first past the post electoral constituencies, is probably better adapted for a politician like Farage to put pressure on parties like the Conservative Party than the proportional representation systems that are more commonly exist in continental Europe. Having said that, I think that the single most important reason for Nigel Farage's success is that he has brought all his unquestioned charisma and political skills to one single cause. He's not let himself get distracted from his drive to achieve Brexit and to bring Britain out of the EU by some quest to achieve power in Westminster. He's never sought, as I said, elected office in Britain. He's never sought to become Prime Minister. He's never fantasised about replacing the Conservative Party with either UKIP or his Brexit Party. He has always been focused on one single objective, which is getting Britain out of the EU. Insurmountably difficult, though that appeared to be at the beginning of his career, it was the focus he brought to this goal which enabled him to achieve it. He is the political equivalent of what Napoleon once said a politician or a leader should be. In Napoleon's words, if you want to take Vienna, take Vienna. Nigel Farage was focused on taking Vienna, taking Britain out of the EU, and he took Vienna. He brought Britain out of the EU. It is this extraordinary singleness of purpose and focus on this objective that, in my opinion, explains why Nigel Farage has succeeded, whereas other anti-EU figures across the EU have up to now failed. If we talk about people like Salvini or in Italy or Marine Le Pen in France, what prevents them from achieving their immediate goals is the fact that their goal is not actually focused on some of the issues that they say it is, such as taking Italy or France out of the euro, or indeed taking Italy or France out of the EU. It is focused instead on achieving power, in the case of Salvini, making him Prime Minister of Italy, or in the case of Marine Le Pen, making her President of France. The pursuit of power always requires compromises, and given the weight of pro-EU feeling in the establishments of Italy and France, that means compromising with that establishment on questions like membership of the euro. Because Nigel Farage never sought that kind of political power in Britain, he always refused to compromise with the establishment on the key topic of Brexit, and that is why he won. I've come round to the view that within the EU itself, it will not be possible in any EU country to achieve the kind of breakthrough that Farage achieved in Britain until and unless a political leader appears in one of those countries who is focused on that one objective in the same way that Nigel Farage was. They need to look to him not just as an example of a successful politician, but also as an example of a focused and single-minded politician who concentrated all his skills and energies on achieving his goal. Will Nigel Farage's retirement make a further difference to British politics? Is there a danger of backsliding in the way that happened after he announced his previous retirement back in 2016, following the Brexit referendum, which took place in that year? The answer is that I think there is, but to a much lesser extent. The Conservative government has now actually taken Britain out of the EU, and of course it has negotiated a withdrawal agreement and an economic agreement with the EU, which is much closer to the kind of Brexit that Nigel Farage always wanted. Moreover, there are people within the Conservative government, like Lord Frost, who is now the minister in charge of relations with the EU, who seem as committed to a full Brexit as Nigel Farage was. Also, I have to say that I think the entire political future of Boris Johnson, who is the Prime Minister, depends to an extreme extent on his getting Brexit done. I cannot seriously imagine or believe that this will be reversed in any significant way, even though it is possible that a future government might want to look to some sort of economic relationship with the EU that might go further than what Nigel Farage might want. So as of now, it looks likely that Farage's achievement will be a permanent one. Not only has he brought Britain out of the EU, but through his demolition of the Labour Party, he has in fact changed the political landscape in Britain also. A remarkable achievement for someone whose retirement the British media and the British political class are trying to give the least possible attention to. Thank you for joining me on this programme. I look forward to you joining me in future programmes for this channel. Please, by the way, remember to subscribe to this channel, and please also check us out on our various other channels. Our main channel, the Duran, where I do programmes with my colleague and friend Alex Christoforou. Please also check out his channel, and also our new channel where we broadcast the various exchanges we have with some of our viewers on our live shows. You'll find links under this video. Please check us out also on our other platforms, BitChute, Library, Rumble, and especially Odyssey, which is a remarkable and very interesting and very good new platform. Please also support us through Patreon, PayPal, Subscribestar, and remember, we also take donations in the form of Bitcoin and other currencies. And last but not least, please also check out our shop and see all the wonderful things that you will find there. Our amazing Duran hoodies, our magic mugs, our amazing t-shirts, our hats, and our sweatshirts. And I look forward to seeing you on having you on my next program, and have a wonderful day until then.